The luck of the roll. In this incredibly unfair and unruly universe, each creature seems to be born with a dice that rolls to determine the outcome of decisions and random events. That fellow down the road, with a brutal counselor ripping his innards apart, rolled low on his constitution. The lass who talked her way up to becoming a CEO of a large company rolled high on her persuasion. Finally, what of the young men called to war, the ones who will never return to their homes? Well, depending on how you look at it, they probably rolled low and failed every one of their saving throws. Moving past the RPG references, we can examine the size of the die each person has. The father down the road who constantly plays it safe? A small die. Smaller reward, but a good chance that dreadfully horrible things will not befall him. The daughter who plays with fire and wins the lottery? She bears a larger die. Greater rewards await, but on a low roll the consequences could be even greater, leaving her with a life either in shambles or in riches. Now, all of this is good and well for fun theory crafting and imaginative storytelling as to why bad things happen to good people, but I have a reason for bringing up such bizarre and fascinating stories. You see, I wish to tell you about the fish who rolled on one of the universe's largest dice. Now, imagine yourself as a fish. Pick any fish, though it cannot be large enough to be a mammal. Good. Now imagine yourself a few miles off the coast of Inopacan Leyte, a small fishing town in the Philippines. Warm waters, plenty of other fish, and a near endless supply of food for you and your family. It's an ideal life, and you know nothing else but the warmth and comfort of your fishy life. We find our subject in a situation exactly like this one, enjoying their life and swimming around comfortably, missing the wide nets of the fishermen who desire their lives. Our friend, who we shall call Gills, happens to stumble upon a large deposit of algae resting on the ocean floor, which he dashes towards and begins to eat. Bite by bite, taste by taste, he indulges on the bounteous meal before being chased off by some of the bigger fish. How rude, the fish thought. I could have shared with you, you know. His thoughts are disturbed by a loud crack from behind him that sends him swimming in a panic, though he was soon drawn to the source of the noise. A hole has formed where the algae was, and the bodies of the larger fish are floating nearby, scattered into a million pieces. Gills peeks into the hole to discover a cavern, and the prospect of finding more delicious algae drives him forward. Down he swims, the darkness engulfing him completely as he journeys for more delicious food. I know I can find some somewhere, he thinks calmly, and his attention is immediately drawn to a light glowing faintly from below. Thinking it could be a new type of algae, one even more delicious than the last, Gills swims down to examine the light, growing more and more excited with each passing moment. As he approaches the mysterious glowing object, he realizes that it cannot be algae, for the algae he knows is... He couldn't quite say what it was, only what it tasted like. And its taste was... good? Yes, at least he thought so. That was... not that. Either way, he would find a way to taste this mysterious light and see how it compared to the algae. When he finally approached the light, he noticed that it was encased in a clear shell, preventing him from eating it. How rude, he thought. The idea of someone taking away such a bountiful meal was frustrating to Gills, and he made that very apparent. He threw a tantrum, all that work for nothing. He swam around, smacking his tail on whatever he could find. He didn't care how much it hurt. He was mad. He twisted this way and that, flailing his tail around until it hit something that moved ever so slightly. Not much, but enough to get his attention. Flying into a frenzy at yet another thing he could not move, he threw his body against the odd extrusion, feeling its slippery shape and forcing it upwards. And he did so. However, more lights began to appear, first below him, and then all around him. The darkness he saw before was no longer darkness, but not... darkness, fair enough. It was large, and that was all he understood. But to the more trained eye, he was in some sort of experimental device, and he had unknowingly powered it on. Gills heard a humming noise and began to swim upwards as fast as he could, thinking it would be a shark or something else with sharp teeth. But before he could reach the top, the walls began to shake. Small beams of light trained on Gills, and in an instant, little old Gills disappeared from the ocean forever. Now, around this time, a hiker in the Rocky Mountains near the west border on Montana started to spread a rumor that she had found a tropical fish still weapon flopping all over on the trail about 5 miles into her hike. The woman was so surprised that she had almost let the poor creature suffocate, but was able to salt the jug of water she was carrying and keep the poor creature alive. Scientists and veterinarians alike came to her to study the creature and ensure its survival, confused at the sudden appearance of such a species in this region. The woman handed the fish, now absolutely terrified and confused, over to these specialists who were stumped as to how it had arrived. After a few days, however, the fish unexpectedly flipped over and died, every organ in its body seeming to fail at once, causing the woman and those who had worked hard to keep it alive much grief at its passing. In death, it was fed to the carnivorous fish, and was used to keep another, much more distant ecosystem moving. When the dice leave the hand of God, anything can happen. In this case, poor Gills was lucky in escaping an undetonated World War II mine left in the ocean, which then opened up an old piece of mysterious technology, left behind by who knows what for the purpose of who knows what, only to be disturbed again by a small, insignificant fish who threw on its systems and teleported itself to the other side of the world. The woman was smart. She had spent much time in tropical places and had recognized the fish as something definitely not from this region. The specialists had no idea concerning the existence of the device taken in the ocean, and genuinely wished to save this fish's life. However, the stress of the previous few days, compounded by the effects of a faulty teleporter, caused total organ failure in the poor creature, ending its suffering and moving it to the next life. And that's it. A random series of events. Not entirely unbelievable, but also not entirely baked in reality. A whole serving of oddities one just might consider to be so wild that there must be truth within it. And there very well may be truth within this story. I guess it's just the luck of the roll.